the best player on every hero. It is by far the most popular kind of content on this channel, and I'm willing to bet that a lot of you discovered me for the first time because of them. It's something that is unfortunately, at least usually, limited to one video a year. But with how much people love it, I tried to think of a way to make it appear at least one other time before the end of the season. And then it hit me. I love doing predictions, so why not combine the two concepts? A best player on every hero prediction video. If you're new to the channel, here's a quick rundown of how these videos work. I'll be going through every single hero on the roster currently in the game and picking one Overwatch League player who I think will be the most skilled and effective on said hero. And this is strictly limited to players who participated in the Overwatch League in 2023. So no, not any of your favorite streamers, not any of your favorite retired players, not any of your favorite contenders players. Overwatch League talent only. Usually I'd use things like stats and the eye test and all that good stuff, but you just can't do that when you haven't actually seen somebody play. So instead, I'm just relying on my gut, my instincts, and things that I might already know. This is just for fun. And yes, the new hero Lifeweaver will also be included if you are curious. That's pretty much it, so without further ado, let's get into some predictions. I typically go from left to right in the hero selection screen by alphabetical order, so that means D.Va is up first. D.Va was not all that useful in 2022, but it's looking like there is a chance she will see the stage a bit more in 2023, based off of some of the early stuff we've seen in the Pro-Am. And if I'm going on D.Vas that I know and love, an old reliable pick is always going to be Void. He is just an absolute monster on this hero always. His timing is just always perfect. He knows how to be in the right place at the right time, and just because he may not be as strong on the Winston or other main tank heroes, we could see the Dynasty play her a bit more than the average team. And it's in this kind of situation I think Void will demonstrate the best ability to peel and create good space at the same time with some dives alongside his boy Prophet. These two could really tear up the league in any sort of D.Va Tracer or D.Va Genji combo. Our next challenger is of course Doomfist, another character that is a bit difficult to get a grasp on. I'd like to think that Dante or maybe Hawk could remain the top dogs, but let's go somewhere else. I'm gonna throw a curveball in here and hope it sticks. My number one Doom of 2023 prediction is Junbin. I pretty much have zero evidence whatsoever to suggest he's a frontrunner. I just feel like the typical suspects would make this a bit too easy, and there's gonna be at least one random one that you don't expect. A team like the Shock could be on top of the food chain, and Junbin has already proven that he can be elite in dive compositions during his time on O2 Blast. And if he gets the mechanics down on this hero, he could be a nightmare to deal with, especially as the enemy team looks at proper. Enough said though, on to Junkerqueen, and if we see any sort of queen at all, which I really don't know if we will, I gotta fall back on my guy Hanbin. Last year, nobody even came close to him on her, and I doubt that's gonna change. Hanbin just has a better understanding of this hero than anybody else, and his individual feats are off the charts. And with Dallas being a bit worse compared to last year, he just might do even more work if given the chance. Time for Orisa. This is always a hard one to judge. We kind of have to think outside the box with how niche he is. What team is likely to pull out the random Orisa strats? And then I thought, why not Dante? He's not yet experienced enough on certain characters in the game, and Gladiators might need to break out something different to gain the upper hand. Dante was an exceptional Orisa player last year, and I could totally see the Gladiators being the ones to break her out. We really don't know for sure if anyone even touches Orisa at all this year, so I'm expecting this to be very off the mark. On to one of our new heroes. It's Ramattra. Ram is a dice roll. He's proven to be good in rush compositions, but not everybody favors him over the Reinhardt. It's a matter of preference. Although, based on what I saw in the Pro-Am, and generally how hard he pounded on the hero when he first came out, I'd say that Hawk is a good potential candidate. He's got the mechanics needed to make the big plays, and the perfect backline to back him up. It just depends on balance and meta, and if the preseason tells us anything, I'd say Hawk should be right up there. Speaking of rush compositions, how about the OG himself, Reinhardt? And if things stay how they are, I'm guessing that Hottie retains his title. Not only is this man an absolute Ryan Chad, but you have to feel like London will be one of the only teams to give him true attention, especially if Ramattra continues to be played so much. Hadi is king, and we know how much London prefer to play around his Rein. That's kind of their identity at this point, so that makes the choice relatively easy. With that said, let's move on to Roadhog. Much like Orisa, you really don't know when Hog is going to pop up, if ever. He's very niche, and the meta for him is always so random. So let's go with a reliable Roadhog player in Max. He really made the Hog work for himself in contenders as part of O2 Blast. He made some sick highlights happen throughout, and he looked like a man on a mission. This dude is a god with the hooks. If Hog were to gain any sort of relevance, I feel that Max and all of his teammates would be feeling great since they've already won contenders with him on the Hog in the past. A more serious hero to look at now is Sigma. Sig can be pretty difficult to gauge. How crazy you are individually, as well as your backline and how they operate, often makes or breaks the power of your Sigma, and one guy that I believe has both things going for himself is Kaluj. Kaluj has been one of the top Sigma players for years. Mechanically, he might be the absolute peak of what this character looks like at professional play. He can even outshine the most legendary tank players in the game. He's already shown us this. His damage output is through the roof always, and I think with a sick Zen Bap from UV and Majed, he'll be in great shape once again to dominate on Sig. Next is our main man, Winston. A couple candidates are looking real promising this year, but it felt best, at least for me, to just stick with Fearless, as he is old reliable. He's always guaranteed to be top tier on Monkey. I mean, it's been that way since 2020, and there's just no way that's going to change now all of a sudden. Fearless has shown that he can play Winston at the highest level on 2 teams in the past as it is. What's one more? With Wrecking Ball, I'm once again looking towards the rookies. This time, it's going to be Donghack. Say what you will about his past and, the little he's accomplished and everything, but I am a firm believer that Atlanta Reign picked him up for a reason. They were struggling with Ball before signing him, and now they're one of the most confident teams here in the preseason. Dude's Ball has always been pretty legit, and I believe it'll be nasty with Overwatch League level support from the Atlanta Reign. And finally for tank is Zarya, another hero not in the best of places right now. I see one of 2 things happening with her. A random team uses her for some one-off strat that somehow works, or B, APAC randomly decides she's good again, as they've done quite a few times in the past. I'll go on the record and say that it's a combination of both, and if that's the case, you really can't go wrong with Hanbin. Dallas are without their star main tank this year, as well as their superstar backline, so they might need to get a little creative to make up for what they potentially lack. And what better way than one of the hardest carries in the entire game? A high-charge Hanbin can always be dangerous, as we've seen in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas find ways to make it work, and he literally takes over games all by himself. On to DPS. When looking at consistent performers throughout the years, it makes me think that Shy could be a good candidate here. This dude has always been nasty on Ashe, and I think there's more room to appreciate his skill on the hero since Spark will likely end up being pretty relevant. And RUI likes to get a little weird sometimes with composition choice, so they might just play more Ashe-related comps than the league average. Shy's been denied greatness time after time, and I think this is finally the year that he gains respect from people outside of the APAC region. Bastion is the next tier on the list, and I feel like it logically makes sense to look towards the teams that play the most rush. Bastion, especially on Nepal Village, seems to synergize relatively good with the Rhine stuff right now, and we've already seen some teams make it work. So let's take a wild guess and just go with Backbone. London like to get a little silly, and they're a big fan of Reinhardt, so maybe they find a way to make it work. Anyway, next we got Cassidy. We got a lot of Cass during the Pro-Am, and if that continues to be the case, this one will be pretty difficult. My choice, though, will be Merit. He's one of the most consistent hit scans in the entire league, and he's not the kind of guy to go hot and cold. His flicks and his general aim, they're smooth as butter, and he's a young star on the rise. And when you factor in that Florida could be pretty promising this year, it seems like all the dominoes are lining up for him. Although again, this could go in so many directions. With competition like Lip, Kai, MN3, Shy, Hydron, and more, this could be a really close one if Cassidy class continues to see significant playtime. DPS hero number 4 is Echo, and I can't help but feel like this goes the way of Speedily this year. Someone like Pelican could also very easily take this, but Defiant feel like the team who will utilize Echo consistently. The boys have so much confidence in Speedily's Echo. I mean, all of these guys he's played with in contenders before, basically, and they all agree that he is the greatest Echo player of all time, so I'm expecting Defiant to run a lot of her this year. Although I'd also like to think that Speedily's just a good candidate in general, cause his Echo really is ridiculous. Next will be our boy Genji. Genji maybe isn't in the best of places compared to Season 5, but hey, teams will always figure out a way to implement him somehow. You could really chalk it up to the Genji favorite coaching at this point, but I'm gonna go with my boy Zest. Dude was one of the best DPS in the game last year, and his Genji certainly tops the list of heroes that he excels on. In my opinion, Zest will be even better in his second year, and there's going to be less competition on the Genji since there's no Who Are You or Proper in his way this time, as Proper likely plays more of the hit scan. This is his time to shine. All the stars are aligned if Genji gets any sort of use. Zest has a chance to truly dominate. For Hanzo, I'm keeping it simple and going with Leave. Man was an absolute menace on the Hanzo in 2021, and I think that him and Shy on those sniper-centric maps will go crazy hard. Man could already destroy people with all of the attention on him as it is on that character. Now imagine what happens when teams also have to account for Shy. Leave will have a lot of opportunities to make openings, carry his team, and make one of the deadliest crossfires in Overwatch history alongside Shy. From there, we have the silly guy. I feel like you could literally pick a name out of a hat and you'll have a shot. Junkrat is played on such rare occasion these days, so my assumption is a random team like Florida did last year will just break him out of nowhere and somehow make it work because why not? And my pick is gonna be Sugar Free and the Vancouver Titans. Now, I have no real evidence or way to suggest that he even touches Junkrat to begin with, but Vancouver feel like one of those teams that might bust out something freaky every once in a while, since they know they aren't the best team in the league, so maybe a random Sugar-Free Junkrat appearance is what they randomly need to squeak out a map or get a spark going. Enough of that. It's May time. She's always a prime suspect to get significant playtime when heroes like Rein and Ramattra are in the mix. When I think of great May players, I usually resort to Pelican. He's one of the first guys that comes to mind. He is one of the best May players of all time, and I believe he'll play it lots alongside the supposed nasty gargoyle Ramattra and fearless as Rein. Pelly has such great wall placements and amazing blizzard efficiency, and I love his chances of being the best Mei if Houston can actually play her. Then there's Pharah, who's always so niche these days, especially with Chengdu now being dead. I mean, it's anyone's prize at this point. I feel like APAC slightly prefers it over the West, so how about Choi Se-wan? He is one of the most underappreciated players in the league, and his Pharah was pretty good last year, so how about we just give some love to our boy Choi and move on. Stepping up to the plate next is the Reaper guy. He's always a character that randomly gets the spotlight like once a year, and then you never quite know when it's going to happen and what comp he's going to be a part of, but in recent years he has been played a lot alongside Winston, and when we think of Winston, we think Fearless. And what team does Fearless play for? The Outlaws. And who's shown that he can play a good Reaper in the past? Pelican. If all goes according to plan, Outlaws seem like they're built for a Winston Reaper meta, and Pelican, I mean, in the playoffs last year was pretty nasty, so sounds like a good guess if you ask me. Otherwise, I think you could maybe look towards Edison, Sparkle, or perhaps Striker. Alright, but how about Sojourn? The competition on her is always fierce, since her ceiling is so high, and last year was just an incredibly tough decision, and if she's meta, I expect this year to be the same. Now, a guy that I definitely think could walk away as top Sojourn, even if it's just barely, is Lip. A lot of people already thought that he was the best on her last year with how hard he carried, plus the crazy stats. Lip is still probably, at least, in the prime of his career, and perhaps one of the greatest individual playmakers of all time. If Sojourn gets her moment, Lip will not only look crazy like he did last year, but he'll get even more attention now that he plays in the more popular region. If West fans could see what he did in APAC last year, he'd get a lot more hype. I think this is his chance to really show off on that hero, and he's going to be gunning for that MVP, so expect him to really play at a super high level on her. I just can see a world where he's even better than Proper or Shy or any of those other guys. On the question of meta choice, Soldier76 is a bit of a tough ask himself. He's only good when the game is simple. He's very niche these days. So let's go with Bird Ring. Shanghai used to play Fled on Soldier in previous years, and Boston happens to have one of their former coaches, so maybe Boston cooks up a Lijiang Tower Bird Ring surprise. Bird Ring's been playing the guy for like over 6 years now, so he'll surely be consistent enough if he actually gets the opportunity to play him. One hero you'd expect to see a lot of, though, is Sombra. She's still quite powerful in heavy dive compositions, and you already know that the pros are going to abuse that fact. And who's better to abuse the hero than Lip himself? Listen, this guy's practically been the best Sombra in the world since 2020. Dude can literally lead the lobby in damage on her. My man farms those EMPs for days and literally wins fights by himself. And with the follow-up from a crazy team like this around him, he just might play the most impactful Sombra we have seen since the switch to Overwatch 2. What's maybe a bit more difficult to judge, though, is Symmetra. She has that one use right now with rush compositions on control maps, and that's it. I feel like a safe bet, I guess, is maybe Hydron. I don't like to go off the preseason a lot, but his sim was pretty effective. I guess it really depends on who likes to play Rein the most in these situations, but based on what I saw in the preseason at least, it seems like Defiant could be one of those teams, so why not go with Hydron? Rounding out the niche DPS picks is Torbjörn. Not many teams are daring enough to try him, for good reason, right? He's not exactly the best pick, but maybe Proper is going to take home this prestigious honor. His Torb was good like the 2 times that he played it last year, and maybe he'll mess around against a random bad team like Vegas or whatever and crush them because, you know, he's Proper. Torb is just really random though. You can basically pick anyone. I'll just go with Proper though because why not? He can play basically anything. Although on the topic of Proper, he's also going to be my pick for Tracer this year. You could of course pick somebody like Kevster for example as well, but I don't think there's a bigger carry in this league on Tracer than Proper himself. She has the highest skill ceiling out of any character in the game arguably, and Proper has the highest ceiling of any player. It's basically a match made in heaven, and he's proven time after time throughout the years that he can will your team to victory if he gets to play Tracer. Team wipes were a common occurrence last year, and he's being put in an even better position arguably since he's a second-year player with more experience and teammates that he has even better synergy with. Proper is going to have a lot of chances to continue shining brightly on his signature hero, and when he gets to player, I believe that any fight instantly will be winnable for Shock. And of course, finishing up the DPS is Widowmaker. I'm getting the feeling that we see her a bit more this year thanks to the bigger map rotation. It leads for more of those Widow-centric maps that we were missing last year, and that means many of your favorite players will get a chance to shine. But I myself am going with maybe a bold prediction with a newcomer. My pride for best Widow in 2023 is Prophet. And yes, I mean the rookie with the different spelling, the new guy. Not the legend. Widow is like his signature hero, and something about him just gives me Aunt's 2020 vibes. Not necessarily as dominant as he'll be, but still a good player, and Widowmaker is where he shines after all. I think those Widow-centric maps where him and Void get to play the Sig Widow combo could be pretty dangerous for the Dynasty this year. This one could be way off the mark, but something about it just feels tempting and almost right to me. Anyway, next we have the supports, and of course is Ana up first. She is another hero with such a high ceiling, and we have so many incredible flex supports in this league. But I'm gonna say that Twilight retakes the throne this year. With Izayaki backing him up, he's going to focus and specialize with that Ana a lot more, and that means he's got more of a chance to recapture his former glory from a couple of years ago. His Ana's so consistent, just everything about it, from the clutch plays to the decision making, it's a work of art. I believe that Twilight's Ana will be the thing to keep Bastion from unraveling. With his excellent synergy both with Smurf and Striker from his Shock days, Twilight basically has all the tools needed to make some big splashes in the scene as a consistent, reliable, and stable Ana player. On to Baptiste. It's gonna sound uncreative, but I'm sticking with Shu. So long as he wishes to play in this league, I don't think there's another guy who touches him. What he doesn't do in healing, he completely makes up for as a third DPS, and perhaps one of the most clutch support carries on a hero that we've ever seen. And with Violet by his side, this just might be the most OP his BAP has ever felt. Third is Brigitte, where I finally have a new champion on the hero for like the first time in 3 years. I'm gonna go with my boy Chorong. Man was a menace on Brig in his Contenders days, and whenever he actually got the chance to play her on Toronto Defiant. They won maps literally almost every single time, it felt like. On a really good Florida team like this though, his Brig might feel oppressive to deal with. With so many playmakers on the side of Mayhem, this is gonna be a hard thing to crack. He's got such a great fundamental understanding of the hero, when to take the right positions on high ground or other places, when to be with his backline, when to get aggressive and pick out stragglers, and this year he'll probably get more chances to show off that brilliance on a regular basis. Now it's Kiriko time, and from the looks of it, Kiriko might have a bit of a different playstyle compared to 2022 playoffs. It's still early, but the Pro-Am composition showed us more aggressive versions of her, so I don't really know what that's going to mean in terms of who plays her the best. But in the longer term, I'd say that might not end up being the case. It really depends on balancing and all of that, which is always unpredictable, which is why I think the best bet is Fielder. Min was widely regarded by the fan base as the top dog on her in the playoffs by far. The way he plays the hero is very sustainable. It's heal focused, with the occasional clutch kill when the time is right, and in the long term, over an entire season, that might just be the more ideal playstyle that you need to try and win it all. It's consistent, it's reliable, and it gets the job done. And things don't really get much easier when we get to the next hero, which is the new support, Lifeweaver. At the time of this recording, I have literally never seen him be played by a professional. We don't know if he'll have any use at all outside of some basic utilities or random strategies, but the hero itself is obviously very support-oriented. He's not high with the damage, he's not mechanically demanding, he's very utility-based. Definitely more on the main support side of things. And that got me thinking, who are the most support-oriented guys in this game? A person who really stood out in that regard, at least for me, is Vindame. He's not the hyper-aggressive main support that other top players in the league are, and he cares maybe a bit more about the positioning, and I could see a world where he saves proper in the clutch. Or you have Krusty do some crafty pedal platforms. Not really sure what to expect overall from this new hero, but I'm interested to find out, and I'm expecting to be very wrong. Where I'm a lot more certain, though, is Lucio. Without hesitation, my prediction is Chio. He is the perfect balance that you are looking for with Lucio. Good decision making. He can make the plays when needed. He can be aggressive, but he knows when to keep it balanced. He's extremely clutch, and he might be one of the best support players in league history. It's just a choice that you can't go wrong with. Then comes Mercy. I feel the best thing to do is stick with my thought process for Pharah, and if that's the case, Xerneas will be my selection. If you're gonna play Pharah with choice A1, you need a pocket. And what better pick than the league's most aggressive and quite possibly most famous active Mercy player? Xerneas has been reliable on this hero for years. I mean, literally since I started doing this video, he's basically been the best Mercy in the league every single year, and I fully expect that to continue in 2023. He is probably one of the only Mercy players that you can at least feel some kind of impact from. Next on the niche support wagon is Moira. Honestly, Moira sucks. The game keeps getting more complicated, and she's so simple, and her utility really isn't useful, but in the event that she actually was meta, I'd say that Fielder is a pretty safe bet. No Moira can outpace Fielder when he's going all out and actually playing her. His high healing output enables tanks very well, and I don't see why that wouldn't continue on a stacked roster like Atlanta Reign. Enough said about Moira though, you get it. So let's talk about our final support, Zenyatta. My best Zen of 2023 prediction will be Vigilante. He's young and still kind of unproven at the Overwatch League level, but he's got the frag potential that you're looking for that made past top Zen players so great. Think about Jonak, Violet, Izayaki. Vigilante gives off the same vibes. He is a fragger, and he has a chance to really specialize in this role on Atlanta Reign. He feels to me like the next young Zenyatta prodigy. Based on what I've seen from contenders and his small time on Atlanta Reign last year, he feels primed to have a crazy year where he really carries. He's got the talent, he's got the drive, the mechanics, and the right team around him to make a dominant year possible. It is time for him to become the next big thing. With that said, that basically concludes my final support selection and general predictions for the best player on every hero in Overwatch League 2023. Again, there's really no way of telling if any of this will be correct. It's more so just a for fun thing, and I'm very excited to look back at mine as well as some of your predictions at the end of this year to see how they compare to the actual results. It's fun to speculate. We can laugh at how wrong we were, or maybe boast about how right we ended up somehow being. Either way, this will be a fun little time capsule to come back to with time. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this video and will consider dropping a like and a sub to support the channel. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.